All right. Morning, everyone. Afternoon, evening, wherever you are joining us from. Thank you for taking the time today to join us for the OpenBB Developer Preview event. We are very glad to have you with us. Let's kick off with a couple ground rules. So first off, this session is being recorded. The session will be, or the recording will be made available to you after the event. This is a speaker-only session. Everyone except for the panel up here will be muted. There is a live chat on the Zoom webinar. We will have OpenBB team members as well as our panel answering and monitoring. At the end of the session, there will be time for a Q&A. Any questions that aren't answered in the live chat, we will try our best to address them. And if not, we will send out some follow-up information on how to contact us. So with that said, today I have the pleasure of welcoming you to our event. We're going to start off by talking, we'll welcome you, introduce what's going on. We'll walk through the updated OpenBB. Jason Strimpel from PyQuant News is here with us. He's going to talk about OpenBB for Quants. Then we are going to, between the OpenBB team and Tony from Pixel, we will talk about how to build on the new OpenBB. And then, as previously mentioned, we will kind of kick off or end the session with some words as well as Q&A where the panel will answer any questions that you may have. So a little bit about me. So my name is James Maslek. I'm one of the co-founders of OpenBB. Around about 2.5 years ago, I was a physics PhD student, and due to the pandemic, I was shut out of the labs. So with all this spare time that I seem to find myself with, I decided to dive into the world of quantitative finance and algorithmic trading. I found it fascinating. There was a whole wealth of information that I could procrastinate writing my thesis chapters with. And I was able to do a little bit of lighter math, having to go from what I usually did down to just trying to understand my stochastic calculus. So while I was learning on my own, I found myself stuck, with all this complex data challenges. In this time, we've learned that this is faced by many, whether you're in traditional finance, crypto, or an academic. So there was not a single tool that would help me get where I wanted to go with my learning goals. If I wanted to collect data, it was either too expensive, or maybe I wasn't able to hit the API enough, and I would have to, spend half my day just collecting data that would eventually be obsolete. And in the case that I could actually find what I wanted, there was a clear lack of consistency. If I was using Yahoo Finance and one of my broker APIs, none of the API calls were the same. I had to know what input parameters, I had to know what the output data was, and then I had to figure out how to save it, and then how to also save it and transform it into a format that one of my other tools, maybe I'm using Zipline, is, and how to ingest that. So at that time, I'm spending all this time just getting the data to work instead of actually testing out my ideas. And this challenge really showed that this landscape was ripe for disrupting. And this pain point is exactly what got me excited when I stumbled upon a post on Reddit that was this open source project called GameStonk Terminal. The post was put out by my co-founder Didier Lopes. It went viral. There was a whole ton of responses, we got some good publicity from this. And from the GameStonk terminal, I really resonated with the need to collect data from so many sources just in one spot, right? Whether that was all these different APIs, whether it was websites and having, 10 equities and needing, 30 different browser tabs open just to get that data I wanted. So I saw the project, and as I kind of hope that we can have some of you here today do, I just hopped right into the open issues and looked at what I could do. And that was the start of my open source development journey. So, this was my first open source project. I highly recommend diving in. So at the time, the GameStonk terminal was built to be an easy platform that one could build on and help to aggregate data from however many sources. We continually added more data points, and with that came more features. And with more data and features came more people from the community. And we were seeing that the GitHub activity just showed that people were super excited about this open source investment research platform. And we knew we were not alone. And eventually we went on to found OpenBB, which is a commercial open source company. And we rebranded the GameStonk terminal to the OpenBB Terminal. At this point, our developer community was pretty well established. We were approaching almost 10,000 stars on the GitHub repository. We had hundreds of contributors, whether that was bug reports, feature requests, or actual code. And at that time, it seemed like a lot, but it never really stopped. Currently, we have a massive community of developers, and that overlaps with finance professionals and students, almost to 25,000 folks connected on GitHub, over 200 code contributors. And at this point, we really want to make sure that we stop and thank each one of you for being supportive of OpenBB. We appreciate anything you've involved, any commitment you've made, even being here. You've all have contributed and made OpenBB the #1 open source project in the finance space. And it would not be where we are without all of you. And you can actually see that when we launched the OpenBB Hub 3-4 months ago, you guys have gotten, or the community has really shown up, hitting almost 20,000 registrations in that short time. So speaking of OpenBB, these problems that I faced, and I know I'm not alone. We've talked to various folks in this space, whether you're a trader, algo trader, analyst, portfolio manager, and the concerns are the same. We get told weekly that, I spend half my day just cleaning up data from different sources so I can even begin testing my ideas and getting to work. This is the problem. This is where we want to come in with the problem solution, right? We help you gather and use financial data easily. We are integrated with over 90 data sources. We have, I'd say, roughly 1,000 commands, and you can either access, specific data or a whole wide range of data. This makes it easier for you to do whatever you want to do to see your full picture in the investment space. So with the goal being to make things simple and quick, whether that's, once again, if you just need quick market data or if you want a full investment thesis with multiple data points across multiple assets. Now, talking about the evolution of OpenBB itself, even when we started at GameStonk, we started with the GameStonk terminal that was brought over to the OpenBB terminal. And at that point, the main goal was to help Python developers or quants get access to the data that they needed in a super convenient way, which was a CLI tool. But soon we realized that we had it backwards. You guys wanted a foundation or an SDK that you could use to construct your solution rather than to use the one that we were providing, or a one-size-fits-all tool. As we've realized there isn't just one-size-fits-all tool for all of the problems. So what we did was, around the end of last year, we put efforts into developing a Pythonic interface to hit all of the terminal endpoints. So all of the 1,000 commands in the terminal became terminal API endpoints or SDK endpoints. And we released that with V2, which was the OpenBB SDK. And it was always a secondary thought that was just came because we had the terminal. However, with this new V4 launch, we're turning the tables. The SDK is at the forefront. This is, we really want to make sure this is going to be the core of OpenBB. And it's going to be a top-notch investment research platform that offers a straightforward promise. It's going to be easy to use. You will have flexible access to, or standardized access and use of data. It will be modular and extensible, so you will be able to enhance, expand it, and build on it to your own needs, whether that's an individual or a company. And then it's going to be scalable and maintainable. We want to make sure that the core works and stays relevant for years to come. And to reflect this update, we are rebranding what we were calling the OpenBB SDK to the OpenBB Platform. And this name change mirrors our new direction, which is aiming to be a versatile ecosystem where organizations or individuals can integrate with standardized and diverse data sources. And the exciting part is that we are not just keeping it to Pythonistas. We are making a web interface that you can access the data from. So now you can deploy the SDK for whatever your purposes are. And we will actually show an example of what we are using this for. So now at this time, to give a little bit more details, I'd like to introduce Theodore, our Director of Engineering, and he's going to give a little bit more about what we're calling the OpenBB Platform. So thank you, Theo.
Thank you very much, James, and thank you everyone for being here with us today. So my name is Theodore Aptekarev, and I'm the Director of Engineering at OpenBB. This developer preview event is pretty important for us because we're announcing the next generation of OpenBB. And let me highlight just a few things that make V4 special. So to start off with the fact that the platform will now offer more simplicity, flexibility, and scalability through the division of OpenBB Core and OpenBB extensions. The core includes data standardization infrastructure and the extension API, while the extensions themselves are the modules that add all the functionality like data source integration, custom functions, and anything that you might need to have the platform customized to your specific use case. Let's go a little bit into details into each one of them. So first, speaking about the core. The core has the main cogs that make the extensions work, and it's pretty lightweight. If I compare it to V3 that had over 400 dependencies, this one has just 15. And as of today, it features standardization infrastructure for over 60 data points. So what exactly are those? Data standardization infrastructure, the data points. So I'll like a short explanation for those technical folks out there. I'll say that, sorry. In a nutshell, the standardized data points are pydantic data models where each field of the model is supplied with a type and a description, and the core is going to do all the validation under the hood and make everything consistent. And that means that regardless of the data provider that you are using, you can actually expect that the output will come out standardized. The column names are going to be of your data frame are going to be all consistent. All the data field types are going to be consistent, etc., etc. We also standardizing the actual input parameters, so like the request arguments that you're supplying the function to make the call to that data provider. And it's important to note that the core will not throw away any provider-specific data. That means that if there is some data, like some data field that is returned by a data provider with a specific, for a specific data point, if it's not standard, it's not going to be thrown away. So you can actually expect a whole picture. You can expect data to be complete. This might sound a bit confusing. Let me show you an example. So this is a screenshot from a notebook. It has 3 cells. In the top cell, I'm importing the OpenBB Platform v4, and then I'm fetching stock price data for Apple from 2 weeks ago from 2 different data providers. I'm fetching it from FMP, Financial Modeling Prep, and I'm fetching it from Polygon. And you see when I print out the data frames that I get in return, I see that both providers return me the date, open, high, low, close, volume, and VWAP. And these are the standardized fields. You can expect these fields to be there for all the providers that you interact with. But then we can see that, for example, Polygon has the transactions data field, and FMP has some other FMP field, which is, for example, the change over time. And so the platform is not going to throw anything away, and you're going to get the complete data that is available by the provider. So, and what about those those cogs that make the extensions work? So those cogs are, it's like the code that generates a Python library, and the Python library has the functions that are, like have really nicely crafted doc strings and type hints. They're kind of a pleasure to work with when you're a Python developer. It just provides a pleasant experience. And when you call any of those functions in Python, the platform will return you the OBBJect, the object. So it's a command output object that both standardized what the provider gave you, and also it provides you with information about some warnings or errors that might have been raised during the function execution. But that's not it. And another thing, which is like really an important one, is that the object allows the platform to expose this command as a REST API endpoint. And this is new. We did not have this thing on v3. So on v4, every command that you have on the Python interface, right out of the box, can be exposed as a REST API. So the platform provides a REST API that maps an endpoint to each command available in Python. So now, all those developers, not just Python developers, but also folks who are building dashboards and applications using modern web stack, you know, JavaScript, TypeScript, or someone with a legacy system built with some archaic language, or someone with a desktop application that is built, I don't know, with like .NET or Java, you name it. All those people now can utilize the value that OpenBB brings by making network calls to the REST API of the platform and getting standardized data in return. And this all works out of the box. So now let's talk a little bit about the extensions themselves. So each extension is a self-contained package, and that package can be installed with pip. The extensions are what give the platform its functionality, so we can say that everything is an extension. You can customize the platform the way you like. You don't need the 400 plus dependencies that we had. So the platform has two extension points. One is the data provider integration, and the second one is a custom command. When you install data provider integration, you get an additional data source for a endpoint. And when you install a custom command, you get it. You get a new command and a new endpoint altogether. So the extensions are pretty easy to create. And when you're bringing in a custom data set that's like not like super custom, not standard, writing an extension would be as easy as writing a few lines of code to make the extension work. So let me show you an example that I've created last week. So like as someone who is like based in Europe, and I'm joining this event in Montenegro, from Montenegro, I'm frequently interested in researching non-US companies. And when I'm starting to research on a new market, let's say India, I'm going to use India for this example. I would often ask myself, how do I get stocks from India in OpenBB? So luckily, there is this really nice open source project by Jeroen Bouma called Finance Database, and Jeroen Bouma was one of the early contributors of OpenBB, and we worked together at OpenBB for over a year, and now he's like went to be the best analyst in the best insurance company in the Netherlands, which is like great. So this finance database is basically a curated collection of various assets with their descriptions and other metadata like country, exchange, where the asset is traded, etc. So I've created this extension. It's called OpenBB FD. The actual function that I'm like using inside this example is a simple wrapper that exposes the data that is in the finance database to OpenBB. It's pretty, small and boring. I'm not going to show that here. But I want to focus on, how I'm answering the question, how do I get stocks from India? And as a person new to the Indian market, I would first need to identify the companies in question, in general. So I'm going to use my extension to make a selection of, let's say, all Indian companies, and then I'm gonna, filter them by the industry that I'm interested in, which in my case is metals and mining. And once the extension goes through those hundreds of thousands of assets and returns me a sample of 96 companies, I can look at some results, and I see that I have, a diverse range. I have different market cap size, and I have different exchanges where the companies are traded. So I'm going to go ahead and filter them more, and I'm going to only filter out the large cap companies that are traded in currencies and the jurisdictions where I personally have access to markets. And just like that, I've identified two companies, both of which are traded in the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, And now I can use all the other data provided by OpenBB to do some in-depth research. So this example shows just the start of this Indian stock screening workflow, but with all the functionality that OpenBB has inside, this can be developed into a pretty sophisticated data-driven workflow pretty easily. So what I wanted to highlight with this example and with talking about V4 is that OpenBB V4 becomes this, this must-have market data infrastructure. If you need stock market data, if you need financial market data, you need OpenBB. And OpenBB V4 is available as a pre-release package on PyPI. It can be installed with pip install OpenBB, but you need to specify the pre-release version. Otherwise, you'll get the latest stable, and everyone is invited to try it out and use it. We will be sharing more use cases and extensions on OpenBB Hub. So if you don't have an account there yet, please register today at myopenbb.co. And now I will pass the stage to Jason Strimpel from PyQuant News, who will share his thoughts on why Quants will love OpenBB.
So just real quick, before Jason starts, I'd like to clarify that when the chat is live, that is actually going to be the QA button that you see, in which you can use to answer or ask us any questions. I just want a quick clarification. Thank you. Jason, floor is all you.
Great. Hey guys, thanks Tio. Super excited to be here. So I am Jason, the proprietor of PyQuant News. So if you've not heard of PyQuant News, you can check out my content on Twitter, LinkedIn, and the website. That's really what I'm doing here, generating content for quants that use Python for their workflows. So I'll skip the long version of my background, but essentially I've been in capital markets finance for most of my professional career and most of my life. In fact, I'm 41. I traded my first stock when I was 18 and wrote my first line of PHP around the same time. So been quite a journey, 23 or so years in this space. And I'm glad that Tio had talked about workflows, because I also want to talk about workflows as well. So I'm going to talk about how one might approach an algorithmic trading workflow. Now, I'm going to keep it a little bit general, a little bit high level, because it's different for everybody, but there's a couple very specific chunks of this work. And I know Tony, who you'll hear from in a little bit, has a lot of experience in this. I'm sure he'll touch on this as well. But for us kind of self-directed, non-professional traders, there's a couple buckets of activity. And as you might not be surprised, it all has to do with data. The first is really about a hypothesis. So for consistent and persistent edge through time, you probably don't want to be focusing on data mining, meaning brute force optimizing a series of technical indicators until you optimize some Sharpe ratio. You're really looking for market inefficiencies. And if you consider the market a random process of data, a market inefficiency is a fleeting event where you'll see some persistent pattern in those data that you can exploit for profit. And in order to test this hypothesis, well, you need data, and you need lots of data. So that's kind of the first bucket. You form a hypothesis, you get an idea of what you think might be a market inefficiency, and then you start to work through testing that. So once you have this idea, you want to work towards an initial analysis. And I teach a course about Python for quant finance, and I talk a lot about minimum viable Python. So if you're a Python developer, which I think most of the audience here is, that's great. But if you're not proficient at programming, or if you're not a programmer, well, that's perfectly fine, because as we all know, actually Python is a tool to get a job done. It's here to solve a business problem. It's not here to, well, some people love to code for the sake of coding, myself included. I think Tony probably included as well, and lots of the folks on the OpenBB community. But really what we're trying to do is solve a problem. And in our case, our problem is making money by finding market inefficiencies in the market. So we want to use like the minimum amount of Python or code in general that we need to move fast, because as you may or may not know, algorithmic trading and model-based trading is a game of iteration. Of every 100 strategies that you might come up with, a handful might consistently be profitable. whereas some of them, most of them will not. So the faster that you can test your ideas, iterate through these ideas, the better off you will be, because the faster you will find an idea that might actually work in the market. So the faster you can use the Python tools at your disposal, the faster you'll come across the next idea. The next is really the pre-trade analytics. So you've got a hypothesis, you did some initial analysis, you found some evidence that there's edge in your idea. You want to start to do some pre-trade analytics. So this might be prototyping a strategy, optimizing your entries, your exits, running through simulations to see how your strategy behaves in different market regimes. Still pretty light touch, but also you need data, right? You require data. Finally, you're getting into the backtesting stage where you've got a strategy. You start to put in slippage models, you start to put in commission models, you start to better simulate reality of the markets. You try to do your best to simulate the dynamics of the markets, because that's the best that we have. We don't have a closed form model for the markets. The best that we can do is simulate the evolution of this data. When you have your backtest, the output of your backtest is essentially a series of metrics, right? So risk metrics, performance metrics, and depending on your risk tolerance, your horizon, etc., you may or may not like how those metrics look. So it might be back to the drawing board in the way that you tweak, but that's okay. That's the whole point of your backtest. And then finally, you start to move into execution. You start to move into risk and performance. You start to reiterate on your entire process, right? So for us, that can take a long time, but we don't want it to, because we want to get through that process as fast as possible so that we can find ideas that work. So among that entire workflow, we talked about data, and we have a bunch of pain points. So the first is a standardized set of data. So everybody who's working in data, I can say that with pretty high confidence with Python, is using pandas. But oftentimes when you go out to different sources of information, you're getting data frames with different columns, you're getting data with different metrics. So even with Theo was demonstrating his custom module, or FMP, the data from FMP versus Polygon, FMP had the percent change, but that was actually in whole numbers. So 1.2, 1.6, whereas some data sources you'll get 0.016. So this is like the unglamorous, unsexy side of this workflow, is standardizing data, making sure that all of your data is in the same place, making sure that it's stored, making sure that you can transform it, it's what you expect, visualizing it, exploring it, etc. And the faster that you can get to that point where your data is standardized, the better. OpenBB gives you that. So with the version 4, you will have all of this data in a very standardized, very clean way, in very consistent objects that you can use in the same way. So you saw he called to data frame on both of those responses. Very powerful to save you time, to avoid all of the hassle of dealing with non-standardized data. The second, and closely related, is clean data. And if you're working with this information, especially when you're getting it for free from the internet, you can't always trust that it is correct. So oftentimes people always complain about Bloomberg data having bad ticks, right? You'll have a data point that's way off. This happens to every data source, every data provider. So oftentimes Quants will Windsorize this data as it comes in various different ways, or look for anomalies in the data that should be thrown out in a backtest for some model training. Well, with the OpenBB SDK, the OpenBB platform, with the extension mechanism, you have the ability to go build this data cleansing up front. As soon as the data comes in, you can get in under the hood and provide the methods and implementation to clean this data, so that when you use it, you don't have to worry about it while you're using it. You just know that as the data is coming out of the platform, out of your method call, or out of your REST API call, that it's standard and clean in a way that you can use. Getting data in the same place is always a challenge. I'm actually looking at a web app that I built in 2010. And it's at finance.jasonstrimpel.com. And this is not a pitch. I just think it's hilarious that 13 years ago, I was trying to solve this problem. I was trying to get different data from different stocks in the same spreadsheet. I mean, now that's laughable, but 13 years ago, even 5 years ago, you had to download a bunch of different sheets or make a bunch of different function calls or loop or do all of these things to get all of the data that you need in the same place. I mean, it's one thing if you're just dealing with stock data, but forget about it if you're trying to get economic data or interest rate data or government data or futures data or options data aligned with your stock price data. Forget about it. And that closes off a lot of opportunities. There's a pretty well-known edge that the open interest in the options market is a predictor of informed insider buying, right? So if you find, or if you have a hypothesis that this is true, and it takes you a week to go get access to options data, access to stock data, and putting them in the same place, that's bad, because that slows you down. Both the SDK or the platform, you get it in the same place. 2 different function calls, 2 different providers, 2 different sets of data, 2 lines of code. Very powerful. The other piece is API key management. So when you go into the hub, so my.openbb.co, if you haven't signed up, go sign up. You can control all of your API keys. And lots of the data that come in from OpenBB platform is free, but a lot of it's also, well, even with an API key, it's still free. However, you can set your API keys and you can store all of those in the same place. So instead of having to create environment files, keep them on your local machine, exclude them from your GitHub commits, you can just store them all in one single place. Again, very useful. And then finally, the automation. I feel like I'm pitching here. I'm not pitching. I'm just a user of the product, okay? But I find this stuff so powerful because of all the pain I have felt over the past 2 decades doing all of this stuff manually by myself. And I'm just super stoked that it is all in the same place now. And then finally with the automation piece. So not only does the platform offer routines, but the platform now has community routines. So what that means is you can create a set of commands that will just run the various bits of the platform in a row, acquire data, clean data, manage data, save data, etc., all automated. And you can set that on a timer. And not only that, but you have an entire community set of these routines. So if you're lazy like me and you don't want to go build a series of steps to go do something, you can do it. You can go to the community and get it. So Darren, one of the maintainers, head of the community for OpenBB, he's built several, and they're always top quality. So to wrap up here, as far as algorithmic trading goes, and even in the quant space in an institution, it's always workflow. It's a series of steps that happen in order, and you're constantly going back and forth to iterate on those steps, especially when it comes to algorithmic trading. And algo trading is a game of speed and a game of iteration. And the faster that you can get the information that you need, the faster you will iterate and the faster you will find strategies that have consistent edge. James, back to you.
No, it wasn't James, it was Theo, but thank
Theo,
you very much.
Back.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you for sharing this. And while we're moving to the next, speaker, I've opened up a poll on Zoom asking, do you use Python at work? Please engage with the poll. So next, I want to pass the stage to Igor Radovanovic. He is a developer at OpenBB, and he's going to share why we think developers will love the OpenBB platform. Igor, the stage is yours.
Hello, I wish everyone a warm welcome. I'm Igor, and I'm excited to talk to you about the OpenBB platform and how it changed the game for me. Allow me to start with a question. Have you ever struggled with building custom extensions for your workflows with other platforms? Well, what if I told you I built mine in less than 5 minutes by using OpenBB? Let's get right into it. I had this universe of stocks in an S3 bucket that I wanted to trade on interactive brokers. Now, I could have used the interactive brokers API directly, but let's face it, the world of data isn't a one-size-fits-it-all. Look at this graph. You can see the data flow flowing from S3 to my screener and back to S3 for my bot to consume. That's where the OpenBB platform comes in and where the magic happens. You might ask me why. Well, I have two words for you: flexibility and efficiency. With the OpenBB platform, I can pull data from any provider in a standardized format. Imagine being a kid in a candy shop and easily picking different data sets and different providers without giving it a second thought. Did I mention the OpenBB extensions ecosystem? It's like standing on the shoulders of giants. They've done most of the heavy lifting for me, and my options arbitrage bot can easily pick the right option chains it needs to function. Allow me to show you how in under 5 minutes I use the OpenBB platform, cookie cutter extension system, plugged in my algorithm, and had my custom options chain screener ready to rock and roll. Here you can see me loading a few dependencies that will be needed and obtaining my universe of stocks from an S3 bucket. Then I will obtain the data I need for screening of these options chains, so I'm getting options chain data from CBOE and historical price data from FNP with 1 year lookback. As the data is being collected, I'm getting ready to send that data into my custom extensions that has an options chain screener. It will screen volatile option chains by using different statistics such as the historical volatility, delta, gamma, theta, and similar. Here we already see what options chains it has found that are suitable for my trading bot. Now I will upload back these results to an S3 bucket that will be picked up by my trading bot running on Interactive Brokers. And here we can explore actually the options chains that were delivered and also see their descriptions. To sum it up, the OpenBB platform isn't just another tool. It's your next co-pilot for building efficient, scalable, and profitable financial applications. In other words, if you want reliable access to financial data, you will love using OpenBB. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Igor, for this presentation. And now I want to invite to the stage Tony Roberts, the founder of PyXLL. PyXLL is the Python add-in for Excel. And Tony is going to show you how to use the functionality of the platform from inside Excel. So Tony, the stage is yours.
Perfect, thanks for that. And yeah, thanks very much for having me on this event, because I'm like, as soon as I saw the OpenBB platform, I was super excited to see what was possible with it. And I think integrating it into other applications outside of the terminal is just going to be really, really powerful for a lot of people. So just to introduce myself, I'm the founder of PyXLL, which is an Excel add-in widely used by the top financial institutions to bridge Python and Excel. And so when I heard about the platform, my first thought was like, okay, wow, how do I get this into Excel? Of course, Excel on its own isn't a Python application. So what I need is to use the PyXLL product to integrate the OpenBB Python platform into Excel. Let me just show you really quickly how this kind of thing works. So what I've got here is just VS Code, and I've got Excel with the PyXLL add-in already loaded. And if I add just a Python function, let's call it PyTest, takes a few arguments, and this is just regular Python code, so I could do return a plus b times c, something simple like that. So we've all written a bit of Python code before. This is nothing surprising at the moment. But to get this into Excel, all I now need to do is say from PyXLL import Excel func, and add this Excel func decorator here. And when I save that file and go back into Excel, reload this Python module. Now, if I have some arguments, I should be able to, if that's worked. I've got this PyTest function here, which is actually, an Excel binding to this Python function here. So without restarting Excel or anything, I can just call my function with some arguments, call to Python code, and gets the result back out. So that's kind of, in a really quick nutshell, how PyXLL works. And if you want more information about PyXLL, if you think this is interesting, then please do go and visit the website, pyxll.com. There's a free demo. You can there's a contact form, and there's also a request a demo thing where we can go into more detail. So have a look there. But back to kind of the OpenBB stuff, what I wanted to show you was, because this is just, plain Python code, now with the OpenBB platform, I can also in here say import OpenBB, excuse me, from OpenBB import OBB like this, write a Python function that then uses the OpenBB platform. So let's just say an Excel func to load prices, give it a ticker, and it's going to return a data frame, so import pandas as well. And oops, sorry. And then in here, we saw some of this in the code shown earlier. We'll just do obb.stocks.load ticker. This returns that object, and then from that I can say to data frame. So, using the platform SDK in a little Python script, save that, reload again, and if I was to say, let's just set Microsoft as the ticker. So my load prices function is available now in Excel here. Call this with this. This is now calling the platform, and it's returning a data frame directly in Excel like this. So this is kind of, it's pretty cool in itself, because it means you can just get this data directly in Excel with very, very little effort. But I guess what I want to get across as well is using the OpenBB platform, you're not just limited to wrapping like little functions like this. You can begin to build up units of functionality, like what Jason was talking about with the workflow, in the same way as you'd have like a cell in a Jupyter notebook. But you can wrap that those units that you'd build into pipelines into more complex, higher level Python functions, which you can then call from Excel to kind of sequence those in the way that works for your, whether it's like daily reporting, dashboarding, that kind of stuff, or as part of your research. So that's really like the power of being able to write these custom functions. But having said that, I couldn't resist like thinking, okay, well, this is great. I've got one thing here, load prices. But what if I could have the entire OpenBB platform in Excel? So that's kind of what I did. It would be pretty tedious to write all of these things manually. But I started a project. It's on GitHub called Pixel OpenBB, because there's a video of me talking about it. And where's the code for this? And in here, this actually just scans through the platform code, picks out all of the functions and exposes them using the Excel func decorator with a bit of other information, so that when you've got this loaded, what you can do is, if I just clear this, if we look here, is I've actually got a library of every platform API call available from Python, also available from Excel. So we just do the same as what I just had. I could call obb.stocks load, call it with this. This is now returning me this object, Python object rather than the data frame. I then got some utility functions. So obb.toDataFrame takes that object and then returns the data frame as we just saw. And you could do things like, what's another good one? Yeah, just like a simple moving average, pass this in as well. Again, oh, sorry, this is, not sure why I haven't got, why this isn't working, but that's the fun of live demos, I suppose. So I'll move on. What I kind of also wanted to show you was, you've seen the really nice charts in the OpenBB terminal. All of these API functions also have a chart option. So here, if I do true here, this will then basically make that same request to load all that data, but also give me some charting bits, like same as what I'd see in the terminal. And then there's another utility function, toChart, which takes this result object and will actually draw me that chart, but in Excel. So you see here, I've now got essentially the same Plotly chart that you would have seen before, but delivered directly in Excel, which is, it's just kind of a nice feature for if you're using this sort of thing to build interactive dashboards where you're changing inputs and doing experimentation and things like that, it's nice to be able to kind of add all these graphics in so that as part of your workflow routine, you can just see everything you need in one place without having to flick back between Excel and other things. So yes, I think that's kind of all I really wanted to show you today. So thanks again for having me on this thing. It's been really good, and yeah, I'm excited to see what's next for the platform and what everyone manages to do with this. So I'll hand back to Theo. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tony. You actually impressed all of us with the platform pixel integration. So for all the people in the audience, I'm going to launch another poll right now. Just tell us, have you used OpenBB in the past? Yeah, while you're interacting with the poll, I want to move on. So we have talked about a lot now. We've talked about what the v4 of OpenBB is, what's it made of. We've talked about what you can build on top of OpenBB platform. How can you use your platform in your workflows? Tony showed an example how you can integrate OpenBB with your closed source application. But in the earlier section, we've actually touched the point of the REST API that the platform provides you out of the box. And what if you could build a professional application that would solely rely on OpenBB for the data? And so I want to show you a preview. It's a preview of the OpenBB Terminal Pro. So OpenBB Terminal Pro has been in the works for a while now, and we're slowly onboarding our design partners. So this is going to be the first professional commercial application released by the OpenBB as an org, as a company. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the first online event where we are showing the preview. So, the big moment. So the OpenBB Terminal Pro is a web application that relies on OpenBB platform for the data. I'm not going to touch the UX points because that would require a separate webinar. Basically, the OpenBB Terminal Pro is a blank canvas that you can fill in with widgets, and each widget would expose a data point to you. And you can combine widgets and tabs and group them and so on. It's like a really easy to use, nice financial terminal with endless customizability. But let's focus on the data. So here, each widget is a distinct data point served by the platform. And we use different providers to get those. And you see we have like key metrics, share statistics, price targets, price target by analyst, revenue for business line, revenue by geography. And all these widgets, they're grouped. So right now I have JP Morgan Chase loaded, and if I want to change it to, let's say, Visa, I go change I put V as a ticker for Visa in one of the widgets, and now boom, the platform will give me more data. It will give me all the data I need for Visa, and now I have all this data for Visa and all the widgets. So we got one place where we aggregated a lot of data providers and we exposed it with an API. So now that we have this dashboard that has all together. I'm going to change it again. Let's go for Minnesota mining and manufacturing, just to take a company from a different industry. Boom. Okay. Now we got MMM data, so we see different, more diversified revenue per geography, more diversified revenue per business line, etc. So this whole thing is just the tip of the iceberg of what OpenBB Terminal Pro can do. And this demo, in this demo, I've just shown you the dashboards that use somewhere around 5 data providers, and just imagine what you will be able to do with all those professional commercial data. So we'll do more events dedicated to specifically the Terminal Pro. So please sign up for the Hub and for the newsletter, and subscribe for the Pro waitlist on the Hub if you are interested. And with this said, I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to pass the stage to James so that James can deliver the outro.
Thank you, Theodore. Thank you, everyone, again, for taking time out of your day to spend this last hour with us. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Jason, for coming and sharing with us. It was very insightful. Hope that we were able to show off a little bit. So to kind of summarize what we've talked about before we open the floor to a Q&A, what we're doing at OpenBB now is we're rebranding this V4 SDK into the OpenBB platform. It's still the same functionality. You'll still probably see references in the code base for years to come to SDK, but we're kind of using this as the foundation for the rest of OpenBB development and any development that individuals or organizations make off of it. So, based off some of what we were showing, if you need market data, you need OpenBB, right? We are providing that platform for you. In order to access guides, tutorials, and platform settings, register on the OpenBB Hub. The link for that is my.openbb.co. And there you can sync with your current SDK, with the V4 SDK, with any terminal usage you have, with your Discord and Telegraph bots, all of your account information in one spot. This is currently available as a pre-release on PyPI. You can pip install OpenBB with that number. There was a previously asked question in the Q&A. I dropped the link to the specific release there. Now, once you're registered for the Hub, if you liked what you saw with the Terminal Pro, hop onto the waitlist. We have some exciting developments and announcements coming in the next couple weeks on how to get that into your hands. And then as a final note, for any organizations, professionals interested with the OpenBB platform, please email us at hello@openbb.co, and we can set up some special onboarding time with some of our engineers, and we can get you set up with whatever it is that you need to get set up with. More information in the follow-up survey. So once again, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you everyone on the panel today for showcasing OpenBB. It's always a pleasure. Love getting the community together. We will open up Q&As. We do have a couple already here. So unless anyone on the panel here wants to hop in, I can start with the Q&A. All right. So I'll start. One of the first questions that we got in this session was, the biggest concern having with data providers is the consistent delivery of data, and how can you be confident that OpenBB access to market data will continue, and who guarantees that? So the first aspect that we can break this down into is that if you are just using the open source platform or the open source level of the SDK, you can access whatever data you want. All you need to do is have your own API key through the providers. So at that point, that's between you and the providers. On the professional level with Pro, that will be, we'll be working more so with contractual, we'll have contractual obligations. So OpenBB will guarantee the market data to continue there. So thank you for that question. All right. Theodore, is the Pro an app or it runs on a website?
Yeah, that's a good question. Modern technologies, they make this line, the line a bit blurry. So at the moment, we're onboarding people with the Pro being if you call it a website. So it's going to be running in a browser. You're going to be accessing it through the browser yeah, that's what we have right now. That's what we're rolling out with our design partners.
Thank you. Good question here is Igor Super. So thank you. Happy to do that. So an anonymous attendee said that they're playing around and would like to know, what is OpenBB still lacking in terms of important features compared to Bloomberg Terminal? One could go on with what they have, the data access or whatnot, the chat and all that. But what we're looking to do is focus on, what we can build that solves the problems that you have, instead of, what we can do to bridge the gap there. And then the second part of that question was asking, how can OpenBB deal with custom packages and virtual environments? Theo, you want to take that?
Yeah, I would take that. So OpenBB is a custom package by itself, and with all the Python thing, it actually works it works inside these virtual environments. So this is going to be really nice in future. We actually opening the curtains, opening up the curtain. We're actually looking into shipping when you install the platform, we're looking into giving you the option to install the Python distribution so that you can have Python environments, virtual environments that will be managed from inside OpenBB. You'll have a lot of them if you'd like to. But in general, because we've reduced the amount of dependencies that the platform needs to actually operate, and you are you're offered to pip install every specific extension that you need for your workflow yourself. So we'll make sure that the dependencies of the extensions rhyme together with the platform in general. This is something that we're going to make sure. But in general, it's going to be something in the user's hands. So if you want to install an additional extension, just go for it. That's the freedom that we're giving. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question. Thank you. Thanks for that.
And thank you. So Adrian asked if we are planning a messenger, what's embedded into the Bloomberg terminal for sharing workflows, charts, data, etc. It is on our. We understand that is a big component of Bloomberg, but it is not on our short-term radar. But we do want to start investigating what potential solutions are, or see what the open source community can come up with, which is always so fun. It's always fun.
If I would chip in with a short answer, not this year.
Yeah. All right. Jeffrey asked, do you see a scenario where a current Bloomberg customer would also want access to OpenBB? That's an easy one. I can say absolutely yes. We can supplement, we can supplement all the data that they have that they limit on your end, or if you could export, OpenBB is a custom platform for doing whatever you want and building on top of. So absolutely, I can think of endless scenarios in which you would want to supplement. All right. Anonymous attendee, is it possible to access CBOT data? Not at the moment. It is, this type of stuff is on our roadmap for likely end of this year, early next year. Question, would you foresee a marketplace for extensions and workflow programs? Theo?
Yes, and before a marketplace, we actually foresee just a place to share on the hub. So I think that sharing workflows is going to precede selling workflows. Marketplace is about selling things, but before selling, we want to go for sharing, and that's going to be we're going to start off with that. I guess that's it. The questions in the Q&A have the stream has dried up, which is great. Oh, there's Jason. Jason has a question.
Not a question, but more of a shameless pitch, if you don't mind. Somebody in the Q&A asked if they could get a discount for the course. Absolutely. There's enrollment is closing on Saturday. So if you go out to the website, maybe one of you kind OpenBB folks can drop the link. I'll put it in our chat. But I spend a lot of time teaching the OpenBB SDK in the course, and it does close on Saturday. So I think the link is here. So if y'all want to drop a note, or you can reach me at jason@PyQuant News. Happy to extend the discount that way as well. Hopefully I'll see y'all. So let me just grab the link here. And James, maybe you can help a brother out. But anyway, yeah, that was my shameless pitch. So hope to see you, and we'll get into the SDK and the platform in detail.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I'm gonna, we'll thank you again for being here. Thank our panel. We hope everyone took something from this. We can answer any questions. Our Discord community can help with any setup issues or whatever you may run into on an individual basis. Please sign up for a Hub account where you can access all this information, and hope you have a good rest of your day. We're always open for questions.